Ja, dames en heren, gaan we verder met de volgende spreker. En dat is Jorgo Chatzimarkakis. A warm welcome for you.
Many thanks for the invitation, and happy to have accepted it. I would like to come back to your question about additionality, and possibly I would like to even say a little bit more than Alexandra just could say. But allow me to share with you my presentation. I'll try to put this. Can you see my presentation already?
Yes.
You can see it. Wonderful. So this is my name, and happy to work with the Dutch network. You just alluded to the hydrogen renewables, so to the question of how make this perfect couple work. And indeed, RED II is not a good basis for that. But we regard this here as the perfect partnership we launched as Hydrogen Europe this week, together with the Renewable Hydrogen Coalition, where wind and solar are basically the most important partners, a joint paper on additionality with very concrete proposals how we can do it. I'll come back to it later. Basically, Alexandra fascinated me with her speech. Basically, she described hydrogen as, well, an element that can help to make lots of jobs done. And it reminds me the 12 labors of Hercules, and that's why we call hydrogen the hero net zero. And all the different tasks that have been mentioned, especially steel, but also chemical industry, also the decarbonization of lots of transport modes, and possibly even passenger cars, although it's not in the political discussion now, but starting with trucks, with aviation. And you had this KLM flight already in the Netherlands with e-kerosene. Then, of course, energy system and societal aspects. I would like to highlight this gray zone here, which is quite important and is always underestimated, because hydrogen will help in the most affected areas, vulnerable areas in Europe, due to the European Green Deal. A lot of jobs might be lost, and hydrogen can save these jobs. So in refinery business, in the business of heavy industry, all these jobs could be transformed with the right skills into hydrogen skills. I would like to debunk a myth, because this is very, very important in order to understand why also in RED II, we have seen that batteries are given a multiplier of 4, and we ask ourselves, why do they get this multiplier and hydrogen isn't? The reason was always here, it's the efficiency. Let us have a look at this question of efficiency, because I think what people do in the political decision-making process is the wrong assumption. The assumption was that this panel here, you have 1 kilowatt panel, delivers everywhere the same result. This is not true. It delivers in the Netherlands possibly, 1,051 kilowatt hours, but at the same time it would deliver in Northern Africa or even in southern Spain, more than double of it. The point is, you cannot dispatch electricity. This is why the battery guys have to live with that. But you can dispatch hydrogen, and you can transport it easily if you go for pipelines. I'm very proud and happy to have seen this historical moment that that the Dutch government has commissioned GasUnie to really do it. So it's not just words anymore, it's concrete action. So we qualify this as historical. Now let us have a look. If we take even transport of this electricity and the conversion of DC to AC, and if we take the comparison between the transport of the electron with the transport of the molecule. By the way, we deducted here the efficiency loss already. So if we deduct everything on both sides, you see that we end up with approximately 600 kilowatt hours that end up in the propulsion, and we have a little bit more in fuel cell. Although we carried it all the long way from southern Spain or from Morocco to Europe. And this is something which is extremely important to understand. It doesn't make sense to continue these myths and these narratives that are possibly giving the wrong picture. Let me come to another, the mineral efficiency, or the question of how many raw material is in it. Let me start with what Alexandra just mentioned, the 40 gigawatt target that we have in the European Union. So you could power with 40 gigawatt hydrogen, you could power 36 million fuel cell cars. Here, indeed, you need much less if you would do it with battery cars. Look at the battery side on the right-hand side. You need only 29 gigawatt of renewable energy. So here, indeed, there's a difference in efficiency. There's a difference in the need for copper for the production of hydrogen. You need much more copper here, approximately 100,000 tons more than you would need for electricity. However, if it then comes to the propulsion via fuel cell or via battery, you have a major difference. You just need 1,660 tons of platinum for these 36 million cars, hydrogen-fueled cars, but you need 115,000 tons of lithium. That's a big difference. And when it comes to the charging infrastructure, another spot where you need a lot of critical raw material, not for the hydrogen refueling stations, but for the charging points of the electric mobility, here you see major difference. All in all, the hydrogen scenario requires 70 times less critical raw material than electrification. And I think this is important. Also, the recycling rate. Let's go to recycling. You see here the platinum group minerals have a recycling rate of 60, nickel also 60, that's what we need. We also need copper of nearly 50. But look at lithium. Lithium has less than 3% of recyclability. The EU target is much, much, much higher. So recycling targets for critical raw materials highlight that hydrogen as a clean technology has a much better circularity effect. So if we look at the fuel cell, this is the fuel cell, and here, this is the part that you cannot recycle. The rest you can recycle. And here we go. We need to stop linear production schemes and enhance circular economies. I'm saying that because the circularity aspect is so important also in the European Green Deal, and Franz Timmermans always refers to it. And here we have a wonderful example where it works with fuel cells, it doesn't work with batteries. So the energy system is dynamic, and we need system efficiency and not single string technology efficiencies. It's the sum of all of it that needs to be seen. The hydrogen prices will fall. That's absolutely clear. Our line is the upper one, is the most conservative one. So we even believe that the price will go down slower than the other. So our calculations are conservative, but it will go down. And how this will be built up, Alexandra did describe it. So we start with local hydrogen valleys. You have in the Netherlands some of them. So we regard also the northern province of Groningen, a big and important hydrogen valley, but also the imports and exports via marine ports, Rotterdam being the biggest and the most important, maybe also on the globe in this respect. And then the pipeline connections, I already congratulated you on this. So between the valleys and the ports to have later on an integrated hydrogen market. How can we overcome the chicken and egg dilemma? You know that we have instruments called IPCEI and European Clean Hydrogen Alliance where projects are engineered. We want to accelerate a little bit the process, and we'll come up with flagship projects. Some of them are already well advanced, especially Green Octopus, where a lot of Dutch projects are included, but also HyDeal. Look at the gigawatt, 67 gigawatt. That's a really, really high number. And this is a project that is quite advanced in its maturity. And on the eastern side, we have Green Crane, White Dragon, and Black Falcon flagship projects that will be presented soon. If you look at the planned electrolyzer capacity by 2030, you see that nearly all of the member states have their targets. Some countries where you would not expect that high target, look at Spain, 71 gigawatt, Greece, 5 gigawatt. That's quite amazing. Netherlands, congratulations, with 10 gigawatt is among the highest rank. That's very, very important. We see that with pleasure. Now, here you find the two lines that Alexandra just described, the 6 gigawatt target until 24, that's the purple line that you see here, 6 gigawatt, and the 40 gigawatt until 2030. You see here's a gap. In 2024, there's a gap to reach the 6 gigawatt target. I'll explain why, but we will definitely overshoot by far in 2030 the 40 gigawatt target. That's also something that Franz Timmermans mentioned during the Hydrogen Forum. Now, why is it so? And your chairman just alluded to the additionality principle. It's the dedicated legislation that needs to be changed and is a bottleneck right now. So we need to remove the barriers to hydrogen investment and create a level playing field with other net zero technologies in order to promote a harmonized approach to hydrogen. What do I want to say? And Alexandra possibly was not clear on that. We won't see the delegated act in mid of July. It will not be presented. We are in close contact, and I think that's the rumor has been spread already in Brussels. We have been in close contact also with DG Enner, and it's clearly seen that the regulation as it stands right now, RED II, is obsolete. It's not working. The leak that you have seen on RED III, you saw it in the Dutch case. I mean, your case was rejected because of the principle of additionality. Last week, the Commission rejected a Croatian case. Look at this. Croatia, a country which now endeavors into hydrogen, was rejected for a 10 megawatt electrolyzer case with reference to the Dutch case that has been rejected. Incredible. So this shows that even public funding would not work. So how would we expect private financing to join in? That is why I am not only confident, I can tell you happy that we won't see the delegated act that early. We will see it most probably in September and maybe possibly also after the German election. The election will be 27th of September, and you might imagine that this plays quite an important role there, because the additionality principle as it stands comes from the German theory, and we don't agree with that. By the way, we issued that joint paper. I said this already with the Renewable Hydrogen Coalition, and even they are against it. Now, here are the three phases how the market will grow. The kickstart phase between 20 and 25, we are in the midst of it. So this is where we, in the infrastructure and the market, need to fast-track projects in order to achieve EU targets of the 1 million ton or the 6 gigawatt. And here we need relaxing state aid rules. That's all happening. And this will affect also the Dutch case that was rejected. Another case with carbon contracts for difference from the Netherlands was accepted, and this is a very good news. In the ramp-up phase between 25 and 35, hydrogen valleys will be built up. We start to build this pan-European hydrogen backbone. Alexandra mentioned it. And blending will be a transition solution for some countries. It's not a perfect solution, but as a transition, it will work. It should not last longer than 35. The stimulation of production and demand can go with auctions and carbon contract for difference. And the guarantees of origin are a very, very important point here. I can only suggest, and I know that this is a sensitive issue, that they are distinct from the gas markets. We had today a good publication in the central or in the leading magazine daily in Brussels, in Politico, highlighting our position there that we published this week. And after 35, you will have large parts of the natural gas infrastructure for pure hydrogen, and you will see the transition to regular markets for hydrogen as a commodity. Clear thresholds are important. We are sure that the Commission will come up with more concrete thresholds. So renewable hydrogen should receive premium support, that's clear. Clean hydrogen should provide a GHG abatement of at least 90%. At the moment, the taxonomy threshold is 78%. So you see that there's a difference. I mean, that's a political decision. That's not our decision. If it's accepted with a 78%, that's then the threshold. And whatever is above needs to be accepted as clean hydrogen, needs to be treated equally. And low carbon hydrogen, the 60% decarbonization will be needed in the transition, of course, towards renewable hydrogen. And the guarantees of origin I mentioned already, they need to see hydrogen as a distinct energy carrier, separate from electricity and gas. Here there's a dispute with some TSOs, some gas transporters, long distance transporters, but we think we are on the right track here. The GOs must include inter alia, the primary energy source, and the GHG footprint. We believe in the 5 Ts. GOs need to be trackable, traceable, tradable, transparent, and trustworthy. Also, they need to capture the attributes resulting from different production pathways. And Europe could go ahead with an international or with a European system that might serve as a basis of an international system. I'll come back for 20 seconds with this auction system. The auctioning will be one of the most important elements to stimulate the production of hydrogen. Portugal started already with auctioning. I'm sure that the Dutch government watches that carefully. And once you have a predictability of these long-term purchase contracts due to auctions for big volumes, you might need also this contract for difference to levelize the cost on the demand side. There we are very grateful to the Dutch system because your case here has been issued positively by the DG Competition. Here's just an example. I'm not going to elaborate on that, but we need to levelize these costs as long as clean hydrogen will be more expensive than carbon-based solutions. Well, this is my last slide. It's a completely new theme. The Netherlands are front runner. We only can say thank you also to all the good work that is done in the Netherlands. It's cross-cutting in many sectors. We need to overcome chicken and egg dilemma, and we need to save and create jobs. However, there's a lot of fake going on there, a lot of fake news and fake information. And most of it comes from battery and solar part. I'm very clear here. And we are in a dispute with Mr. Dies, the CEO of Volkswagen, who really insists on putting batteries into trucks. Wow. 6 tons for a 600 kilometer range. I mean, this is so crazy after the presentation you saw here. And he works with fake news. We don't like it. That's why I say it clearly. We need cooperation between the sectors. We need batteries, but in the right niche or in the right segment. We need a fact-based approach, please, and an ethical behavior. Only then Europe can be number one, as Alexandra wanted it. And I thank you for your attention. Dank u wel.
Well, thank you, Giorgio. Yes, applause for you here from the Netherlands. I give the word to Robert. He wants to discuss the issues.
Jorgo, thank you very much for a very, very good presentation. Very speedy and hitting all the points. So thank you very much. Clearly like your story about debunking the myths about battery electric and fuel cell electric vehicles, something which has been nagging us for quite some time. As we mentioned in the session with Alexandra, the RED2 and the Delegated Act is all hindering us in trying to get things implemented. You're hinting that the Delegated Act is postponed. Is there even a hint that it might be become really obsolete and RED3 might take over? Is that a good thing?
Well, RED3, RED 3, basically is nothing else than a way to interpret RED 2. This is quite new. I mean, these guys developed 10 years ago a legislation that was passed by the trilogue, by Parliament and by Council 5 years ago, and it was already 5 years ago obsolete because the hydrogen narrative was not that strong 5 years ago. I was already on my post. I tried to do some things, but it was very difficult. Now the Commission understands it's not workable. You cannot work once you have hydrogen as a priority, very high on the agenda. you cannot work with a legislation that was designed for an all-electric scenario. And that is why it's super obsolete. They are also looking into RED 3, because the leaked version of RED 3 that was on the market is also not very likable to the hydrogen people. Let me say it like that. We see that there is a tendency to go back to square one, which means all on zero, new start. And that's why they need some time until October, which is good news for us. That's very good news. And all these multipliers which always were unfair, they will disappear. But it's also clear that, to give you an example, they will not get away with the additionality principle as such. It's not needed. You can keep additionality, but the burden of proof should not be with the guy who's running the electrolyzer every 50 minutes. It could be over a year span with the bidding zone or with the member state. That's much easier. So you need to integrate flexibility. We want additional renewable resources, but not every 15 minutes. I mean, that's so, sorry to say, excuse my friend, it's so stupid.
We're all with you.
So stupid.
Yeah.
And the bidding zone might help, and that's, I think, the solution that in the end will be adopted.
Yeah, I'm trying to make a switch over to our next speaker, who's going to talk about guarantees of origin. I think your last few slides about the market and showing how things must integrate and allowing the contract for difference to start up and to bring the scale is a very important one. And thank you very much again for your presentation and your presence.
Thank you.
Jorgo,
Thank you,
all
Bella.
the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.